Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour. It is the first and second day of action at the Chessable Masters. Now, if you don't remember how these tournaments work, we begin with a certain amount of players. Right now, it's 16 players, a lot of unique players in this event. They play 15 games, so they play a giant round robin, and then the top 8 players qualify. In the first 2 days, we had a lot of really interesting games, obviously, because it's a shorter time control. One of which being that PRAGG, who was the youngest player to beat Magnus just a couple of months ago, who sent the world ablaze, just beat him again. So we're going to take a look at that game. We're going to take a look at some more games. I'm in a tank top because I went to the gym today. I played some tennis, came home, washed up, and I'm just chilling, all right? Let me wear what I want to wear, all right? I'm feeling good. You know that feeling when the rain ruins your day? Well, the rain did not ruin the day-to-day. I actually got inside, and then it started raining, so I beat the rain. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. PRAGG plays e4. We have Ootes, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, and d3, bishop c5. So this variation d3 is not the most common, obviously. Castles is the most common, and white tries to play c3, d4. It's also possible, obviously, for white to play the d3 setup, but that allows black to develop the bishop to c5 and then play in a slightly more unique fashion. Like white still kind of goes for the pawn structures c3, d3, e4, but maybe PRAGG is going to delay the move d4, the more traditional approach to this position. Okay, we have h6, kicking out the bishop. We're not going to get into the massive intricacies of the Ootes. If you really want to do that, it's the equivalent of reading a dictionary. It's just, there's much more interesting stuff to read. A4, rook b8, takes, knight a3. So, PRAGG is attacking a pawn on b5. That pawn is not defended by anything. Magnus counterattacks with g5 prior to dealing with something on the queen side. Now, it looks like this has not been dealt with. It has. Why has it been dealt with? Because takes, and this rook sees the knight and then the queen, and then black in this position can play the move c6. And if you move, you lose your queen by force, because I attack your king and your queen is hanging. So, bishop back to c2, b4. And Magnus says, you want my pawn so bad, you can have it, PRAGG, all right? I made a promise a long time ago that because you beat me one time, you're never going to beat me again. So go ahead, I'm going to get aggressive with you. I'm going to try to win control of this square. I'm going to try to get rid of this bishop. Maybe later I'll play like this. And, Magnus taking some calculated risk. PRAGG, meanwhile, is looking to make a few exchanges. So he makes one exchange, and a couple of moves later makes this exchange. Now, the position here is completely equal, according to Stockfish, because, again, Stockfish is the smart kid in the back of the classroom that read ahead 5 chapters in the book when everybody is still on chapter 1. So, it kind of knows a thing or two that we don't. It is completely equal, though, because what happens in these Ootes middle games is that the pawns sort of liquidate one into the other, neither side having much of an advantage, but there still being plenty of play. So we have another big trade. The b2 pawn is defended, and it kind of counterbalances the weak c7 pawn. I would argue the bishop is better than the knight, and these pawns make it possible to crack open the king side with a pawn move and, play for a win. Again, if you're Magnus, you're trying to create counterplay with your knight. PRAGG doesn't blunder in exchange, shockingly. F6. Now, again, here's a way that black can get a really bad position. F4, takes, and all of a sudden white is targeting F6, white is targeting the king, and the weak pawns near it. So after F4, Magnus has to play defense. So he's just chilling, and it's really up to PRAGG to figure out, which way he wants to take. Is he trying to shred it all open? Because again, there is a way that he can kind of get in like this. This is also very unpleasant for black, but Magnus is not going to allow that. Magnus defending quite well here, and PRAGG has locked the structure. The knight goes back to d8. It's going to land on e5 from where it will not be moved. It's going to be very good on e5, but PRAGG can continue to either try to take it or try to break apart, the defense of the king. And, obviously both players have low time. So PRAGG is putting pressure on Magnus. Now 30 moves into the game. We're getting into the mid-30s. We kind of see the approach here, right? The king is still quite weak. I'm telling you, it's like not... It really is quite easy for black to get a totally lost position if black is not careful somehow. If the rook is able to get in, the queen is able to get in. Like, we take for granted that Magnus is playing with black and therefore is not going to get a bad position. But it's quite a dangerous situation. And we have a trade down into an endgame. And you might be wondering, Levy, what on earth did you name this video? How did Prague win this game? Like this. Here, 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 here. Bishop takes f6. The knight is under attack now. The knight can go here or here. Those are really the only two moves by Magnus. Going back this way, I don't know. It is a move, I guess, but I don't know why you would go back that way. The rook would just move. And instead of that, he goes here. Magnus plays knight g4, attacking the bishop, and blunders a check. Just danger levels. The bishop that's hanging actually is used as an attacking piece. And that's it. Just a fork. And the game is over. Now, again, Prague beats Magnus. That's now 2 times in the last several months. And the craziest thing is, Prague is winning the way Magnus beats people. Continuously pressuring, a little bit up on time. He had like a minute to 20 seconds. And a blunder, a late game blunder from all the pressure and kind of the various complexities of the position. Prague beats Magnus again. Incredible. Can't make this stuff up. I don't care how he beat him. You could be like, it was a 1-move blunder. So what? Magnus wins like this, Magnus wins like this. So Prague gets a win. Big win. Amazing. Congratulations to him once again. Now, he is now the youngest and the second youngest player to ever beat Magnus Carlsen. He holds both records. Abhimanyu Mishra, the world's youngest GM, he got that record last year, I believe, is also playing in this event. He's playing against Shahryar Mamedyarov, and he played a fascinating game against Shahryar, which I will show you. This is a gioco pianissimo, very quiet. White doesn't play d3, and Mamedyarov, thunderstorm outside. Can you hear that? It's incredibly loud. Mamedyarov plays the most aggressive way, which is just a very early d5. These positions I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Like, honestly, I mean, it's incredibly dynamic, imbalanced. White is like sacrificing a pawn, for example, d4. I suppose it's not quite a sacrifice. It would have been a sacrifice if the bishop was back there. Here, I think you have knight b3. That's the idea. So at least you're going to try to win it back. But there's all sort of weird, just tactical complications in these positions. And from the opening, it's Abhimanyu, I would actually argue, who has the better position. Weak pawn on e5 and pretty good coordination of the white pieces to g5, to h5. The rook is good, the bishop is good. This bishop is very strong, but that's defended. And if black plays bishop f5 trying to take, there's a hanging knight. So, white now begins an initiative, right? He plays bishop h4, bishop g5, bishop to h4, trying to defend his f2 pawn. And, Abhimanyu's got a great position. Everything is very well protected. This is the most annoying piece on the board by far because you can't go knight c5, but that's hanging. And Mamedyarov is like trying to defend it by counterattacking white, and Abhimanyu moves the king out of the way. Sometimes in a chess game, when you've pressured someone for so long, and they just sort of step out of the way of the threat, like they just step out of this, you can't even take this anymore because even if you win it, the king is already safe. So just queen b7. The pillaging continues by white, and black has nothing. Black spent the entire game loading up on one spot, and Abhimanyu's like, that spot means nothing. Go ahead and take it. And at this point, Mamedyarov goes bananas. He plays bishop to h3. Now, that is not a free bishop, okay? Queen f3, king g1, bishop f2, knight f2, queen f2, king h1, queen f3, king g1, knight e3, and mate. It's not a free bishop. All right, and it's not mate, but you lose everything. Then you will be mated. So, yeah, that did not happen. Bishop h3 is not a free bishop, but it is a bananas-looking move because, again, what if white just doesn't do anything? Abhimanyu took the pawn, and he comes back. And now my man Mamedyarov is going bananas. He is just, look at this. He's just going after the kid. Mamedyarov is just going after the kid. Like, he's just trying, kid talk smack, Mamedyarov gonna go talk some sense into him. Knight to e3. He's forcing him to take rook e1. If you were to capture this, he would take e4, and there would be problems. So rook e1. All right. Queen e4, rook e3, and Mamedyarov still continues to try to get to Abhimanyu, but Abhimanyu's like, I think I'm safe on the side of the board. Is it over? Is dad calm again? Is Mamedyarov... Well, actually, if anybody's calling anybody dad, we're about to find out, all right? Because, Mamedyarov runs out of steam. He just realizes he doesn't have enough pieces. The white king is completely stranded, no doubt. The bishops are out there like, yo, everybody back up, doing crowd control, I just watched the car drive completely on the sidewalk. I mean, like a motorcycle on the sidewalk. What the heck just happened? Welcome to New York. H5. Bishop E2, Rook F5. And Mamedyarov is bringing everybody, all right? But the bishops are doing crowd control, not letting anybody get close. And now all of a sudden, it's Abhimanyu who's threatening mate. And it's getting real bad. It's getting ugly because he's getting real close. Now he's going to threaten bishop g6 and a queen sack and rook e8 mate. All right. So queen f5, forcing the queens off. And that's it. Mamedyarov's only got 2 rooks remaining and the black pieces are completely suffocating. Rook e5 is going to win everything. Absolutely everything. Rook e8. And that's mate. And Abhimanyu Mishra has just defeated, I think, his first Super GM. I think he beat Hare Krishna in one of these events. I don't remember, but I mean, Mamedyarov is like a top 10 player, like top 15 player. I mean, it's crazy. So congratulations to him. Big upsets by the youngsters. Amazing game, holding his nerves against Mamedyarov, who was just throwing haymakers at him left and right. Next game I have for you, Dingley Ren, the candidate, the newly minted candidate. Regardless of what you think of him taking Karyakin's spot, I mean, really, it doesn't really matter what we think. He took Karyakin's spot. It's official. The candidates are in like 2 weeks. He's taking his spot. And he's playing Jordan van Forest. Or should I say Jordan van Forest? That's how I'm supposed to say it. Sometimes I get a question about like why Dingley Ren's name is like that. You know, why it's Dingley Ren and I don't say Van Forest Jordan. That's just how I believe Chinese and Indian names are written. I think officially it's the mirror image. Like Ding is his last name. His first name is Liren, but that's just how it's written. I'm sorry, that's just how I copy paste the PGN of the game into chess.com. Knight f3, d5, and we have a completely symmetrical position. Now it is white's turn to break it apart. cd5, ed5, and Dingley Ren trades bishop for knight and gets this pawn structure. Now you'll notice he let Jordan move his bishop before he took. So the bishop now makes 2 moves in a row. It would have made significantly less sense to do this now because the bishop hasn't moved yet. So you would get castles, and now, you know, at least now it's castles, but I mean, it's castles, but there is no castles by black. So this position is really incredibly rich with ideas. So white wants to play rook c1, blockade on these 2 squares, and win these pawns. Black, with these 2 hanging pawns, wants to create kingside attack, right? Kingside attack, open lines, use them as anchors in the position so to drive the pieces forward. So we're going to see who's going to win. I mean, is it going to be Dingley Ren with the positional approach? Is it going to be Jordan with the hanging pawn approach and that middle game plan? So we have bishop g4, c5, knight g3. You'll notice that he actually allows this. This is a common idea. The idea here being that there is really no attack by black. Like, yes, black can play knight h5, queen h4, but you play f4. This is now blocked, and it could get real bad real quick. I mean, white is completely solid here. c6 is a pretty big weakness, not to mention the fact that, of course, there is literally just a hanging pawn. They're called hanging pawns because they hang in the center of the board. So, right, you got to defend them. So knight g3, and as you can see, all right, Jordan is moving forward a little bit. But here, bishop f6. And tough position because if queen f6, this is just a free pawn. Like, you're just giving Dingley Ren a free pawn. There's no questions. This is also a fork. So instead of that, Jordan takes with the g pawn, but this is rough. I mean, he defends his center pawns, but it's a rough structure. And immediately when you get the doubled pawns, you're looking at that square, knight h4, knight f5, and the knight just keeps galloping. I mean, why not? Just gallop all the way, right? Look at this. I mean, Dingley Ren just gets on his horse and just rides off into Jordan's position. He's like, hello, hi, I'm here to take everything. And Jordan's like, well, take this pawn first. Get out of here. All right, because I want to activate my queen. Ding's like, no, I'm actually going to bring my second horse. I have 2 of them. I got the horses in the back, as philosopher Lil Nas X said. Yeah, I mean, the horses are coming, and queen h5 is queen g4 is, you know, I mean, it's bad news here. It's kind of insane that white can just do this, completely arrive on the doorstep, and everything is defended. Jordan, you know, tries to trade the queen off, and just g4. I think f4 was a slight inaccuracy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he had to play back to f3. He did it like this, but his knights still survive. The structure isn't great, and it allows Jordan to create well-timed counterplay in the middle. I talked about this a while ago. These pawns are going to be useful. Now they're very useful because, again, if you take them, CD4, rooks are being traded. You can't take this because bishops are just absolute scumbags. I mean, they see the entire length of the board, whereas this knight just is like, ooh, that looks kind of tasty. Keep that move in mind, by the way. So king h2, takes, and Jordan has fought back. I mean, the hanging pawns have served their purpose. They've survived the middle game, and even though white was able to get some advantage, you know, now he has to defend against the counterplay, and the counterplay is vicious. Ding Liren might claim that he's up a pawn, but the knights are much more clumsy than the rooks, than the bishops here. But the worst nightmare for a person trying to play against horses is allowing them to get coordinated. And Ding hides his king completely on the edge of the board, by the way. Like among the pawns, he's just hiding in the bushes like, yo, nobody's going to find me here, right? Bishop a7 attacks the rook. And now we have the absolutely amazing move. Just, I mean, this move is so disgusting by Ding Liren. You know what he played here? He played rook g3. Do you know why he played rook g3? Because rook g8 is mate. And nobody can stop it. Okay, wait a minute. Of course I can. I have rook d8. Yes. But my plan is not to save my rook. Knight e5. And I said, keep this move in mind and make sure that your knights don't get coordinated because the black king is completely stuck. If you play rook to f8, which obviously looks like a normal move, that does not deter me in the slightest. Because after takes, rook c8. Incredible. Bishop to a7 attacking the rook, and Ding says, you could have that. Here comes my knight. And Jordan is a good sport. He allows it, and Ding Liren wins. What a game. Topsy-turvy game. Very kind of traditional hanging pawns middle game there, you know. A lot of complicated ideas for both sides, emerging with Ding getting the pawn up, slightly stumbling, good counterplay, but able to find his footing by running his king out to the side of the board. As I always like to say, when they do it, it looks effortless and they're geniuses. When you do it, I make fun of you and guess the elo. So Ding gets a very nice win. Now, another person who we have not heard of at all in the last couple of years is Wei Yi. Wei Yi was like, was Firouzja before Firouzja existed. Wei Yi was supposed to be the guy that challenged for the world championship, and he's been 27-30 for something like 6 years. He was 27-30 as a 16 or 17-year-old. I think he's 22 or 23. I might be mistaken, but I think that's his age. I think he's born in 97, which would make him 24, I guess. Wait, let me see. Wei Yi chess. Oh my gosh, he's born in 1999. He's 22. That's insane. He's been that rating for like 5-6 years. It's crazy. So he's playing, and he's playing David Anton Guijarro. All right, and we have a deferred Queen's Gambit accepted. Queen a4 check and e4. So Wei Yi's style before he became kind of a consistent top tournament player, where you have to adjust your playing style to be a little bit more solid, was, I mean, he liked imbalances and he liked to attack. And David Anton, I've been noticing, is a super creative player, which is why there's a rook on b6 in like the first 10 moves. And that rook and the entire queen side became totally locked. Like that rook became just the ornament, like on a shelf, you know? Like, I mean, this is incredible. What is it doing? And I mean, if it goes back to c8, it's got a very big role in the game. So knight c3, bishop to b4 with the idea to take this and then win this pawn. Wei Yi now has to, well, first he attacks the rook, forcing the rook in front of the bishop, and then he plays the move d5. Believe it or not, these two natural moves send the game from plus 1.1 to minus 0.5. So nearly a 1.5 point turnaround completely on the evaluation side. Yeah, I mean, ED, E5, Ding, sorry, not Ding, Wei Yi sacrifices, I think Ding is he is number 1 in China. Actually, is Wei Yi number 2 or 3? I think Yu Yangyi might be the second ranked player, but I think Wei Yi is now currently number 3 in China. But yeah, pretty powerful 1-2 punch. So Wei Yi has sacrificed a pawn for a central blockade, but the problem is this rook, it didn't go to a6, but like, what What is going on here? That is not where the rook is supposed to be, all right? Like, the cow on the farm is not supposed to be on the roof of the house. Unless something was laced in the hay. I don't know. But Wei Yi tries to kick the knight out. The knight does leave. But, I mean, now, f4. And even though Wei Yi is pawned down and computer likes black's position, the thing about f4 is that f5 is going to happen. And if you're not careful here, like if you're, playing in David Anton's shoes, you're just grabbing pawns, you don't really care. Knight f5 is coming, rook d1 is coming, bishop is taking here, the knight is going there. These pawns are very annoying because at any moment they can go forward together. So f5 by David Anton invites en passant, but then we have f5. But then we have a sacrifice of the rook. Oh my. H takes g3. And here, for an inexplicable reason, David Anton does not take this pawn. I am staring at this position, and I can only imagine he didn't like something, right? I mean, maybe he didn't like something like this, but he is absolutely attacking here. And then this knight is getting to d3, just give it a couple of moves. This knight is also getting to d3. It's just like Ding Li Ren riding in on the horse. I mean, on the two horses. I don't know how you ride it on two horses, but I mean, it's pandemonium here. Instead, he does this first, and now Wei Yi seizes back the initiative because he didn't take the pawn on g3. I mean, David Anton did so much right. Now Wei Yi seizes back the initiative, and this knight has been booted, and now rook e1, and this knight will never return. I mean, it can, but it's gonna get taken because I'm not gonna let you live there. And the thing about a position where you have an extra exchange, like right now, Wei Yi has a rook for a knight. The relative value of the rook is important. In this position, white's a1 rook is not participating, and the black knights are super strong. But in this position, the a1 rook absolutely is participating, and if you can also trade off the black rook, you're going to be left with the only rook on the board, all right? And in the land of the blind, right, the person with one eye leads the charge. So even if this rook, that's not the quote at all, but it's the same, you get what I'm saying. Rook d8, queen d2, and I mean, yeah, now Wei Yi is super activated, and well, he's gonna take the knight, of course. Like, what else is he gonna do? And this bishop is never getting a chance to participate because black really wants to play e3 like this, but I'm always gonna block you. And I don't really care that you can play moves like this and attack me like this, because it makes no difference. This diagonal doesn't matter if the bishop is open. It only matters if the queen is open, and I'm not going to get mated. So queen d7, finally the bishop gets one more move, but it's all over. And here a very nice deflection sacrifice. The bishop is overloaded. It cannot cover both squares. And f7 check. And Wei Yi gets a win as David Anton resigns because he's going to lose all the remainder of his pieces. It's pretty nuts that David Anton put his bishop on b7 and the entire game happened until that bishop got a chance to move again. It just sort of happens. Like sometimes when you lose, one of your pieces never moves, and that bishop moved twice in 37 moves. That's not good. 2 for 37 is really not sufficient in most cases. I mean, some of these pawns don't move at all, but they're pawns, right? So Wei Yi wins a super dynamic and interesting game. And the last game that I have for you is between two players you haven't seen. Nils Grandelius from Spain and Gawain Jones, who is from England. But if you enter England for some reason, this has been a problem for months. They haven't fixed it. I don't know why they haven't fixed it. But sometimes they watch my recaps and then they message me things. So if one of the devs is watching my recap and is like, why haven't we fixed this? I put the UK flag because there's a glitch on the English flag. I don't know. It's not the typical English flag. It's like some random flag, some random glitch. So yeah, Gawain Jones is the UK now. Obviously a matchup of two players who we don't get to see too often. Similar. Where have we seen this before? Where have we seen this before? Bishop c5. You remember the first game of the video. There was like c3, etc. But this time an early a4. But if you recall, in that game, there was a bishop on b6 because of c3, d4. And Magnus had played g5. So we had something that looked like this-ish. I think this was the position, like very similar, with knight a5 idea here being played by Magnus, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was knight a5. But I mean, the move orders and all these positions kind of blend together in my head. So in this game, we also get g5. But we don't get whatever Magnus was doing. We get castles and king g7. So king g7 unpins and also makes it possible for the rook to come and help. There are also some positions where the king and the knight support the advancement of the pawns. So, like, I mean, this looks completely insane, but this actually isn't entirely stupid. And I mean, white has to be careful not to be smushed. You know, the king moves, you know, the knight goes back, f5 comes, like, black is thrilled. And you're going to see that's exactly what Gawain does here. He plays this approach. He puts the king and the knight next to each other. White has to be careful. I mean, to be honest, this looks pretty awful. I don't play this with white, but this just looks awful, like, visually. So you got to play h4. You got to be quick. You got to coordinate your pieces. And now knight e3. And I don't know why Gawain Jones didn't play f5 straight away. He decided to remove this knight, which is fine. But I would imagine that his next move is going to be f5. There it is. Again, white is a move away from losing. As I always like to say, in games like this, we take for granted how good the players are. Because white is a move away from being dead lost. What I mean by that is that if white doesn't take this, like, white is just getting rolled, even though they castled on that side. Even though black castled on that side, black just uses all the pawns. So very instructive, same side attacking mechanism. But here, you know, Gawain gets the pawn and is much better. But the way you respond to something like this, where black doesn't have anything immediate, is you strike the center, right? This is the way you have to play this position, because Gawain Jones can't take on g2. Nothing is defending the knight. And if he takes on d4, which is what he does in the game, all hell breaks loose, because you're not going to take back. You're going here. Doesn't matter that you're down 2 pawns. You want to activate your queen. You had no way to get the queen into the game until now. You have d4 and knight e4. And this is how good players play. They activate pieces without moving them. They activate pieces by moving 2 other pieces. You understand? That's the difference between you and a 2700 playing in the Chessable Masters. There's a few other differences. Probably you shower too much. Probably to get to that level, you got to shower like 33% less. You know, but I don't know. Maybe you got to eat your fingernails more. I don't know. Toenails. I don't know. Knight takes h4. Believe it or not, the best move here for Gawain Jones, according to Stockfish, is to take on g2, which is just incredible. The point is that now white's attack is slowed down because the rook is hanging. And if you take h4, and if you take hg, and if you try to preserve your bishop, are you ready for this? Just knight g5. And apparently black is just winning. Like, it looks like white can crash through on the center, but the bishop is coming, the knight, the rook, oh my, oh me. In the words of the LA Clippers announcer when they used to have Lob City, oh me, oh my. I don't know what his name is, but... So e takes d4, knight f5 back, and not letting the white queen activate by covering the square. Very complicated position. I mean, both sides... fighting to the death here. B takes a4, rook takes a4, and Gawain Jones at every moment here has to take this bishop. Again, this knight had to first take on g2. Now it has to take on g3. The reason why you have to take on g3 here is apparently this bishop just cannot be allowed to survive. So you then like play bishop f5, you then play knight g5, maybe you play h4, but the bishop surviving and the knight being in the way of the black pieces is the problem, because once the bishop survives, this knight can't really move. You understand? The only way for black to make progress was to make this trade. By not doing that, what happens now is you're very passive. You cannot activate in the way you would like. And also this pawn is hanging. And now you have to start trading pieces. And in trading pieces, your kingside attack no longer exists. All right? And you start to, you begin realizing that white has made it through. Now, black has plenty of play left. Obviously, there are weaknesses. G3 is a thing. But sorry, did I say white has plenty of play? Black has plenty of play. There's a lot of attack here. But it's not to deliver a mate. It might be to make a draw. And what I mean by that is, because your king itself is so weak now, and I got in, you gave me a lot of time, you're not really going to deliver a mate, but there could be a way to expose my king, and then maybe some perpetual check. So king to g5. Gawain Jones says the king, the king is going to go do the dirty work. G3, queen takes D4. And this is the most tense moment of the game. Black has to find knight takes G3, queen E7 check, and go into an endgame where it's rook and 3 versus rook and 1, rook, bishop, and 1. Stockfish claims that, black can hold this. Gawain Jones doesn't do that, but unfortunately the king gets pushed back straight into the pin, and that means that the knight no longer defends this. Rook D6, and in our final game of the day, Niels Grandelius picks up a queen as the timer expires, as the buzzer sounds. Gawain Jones resigns, and our standings after the first 2 days in the preliminaries, Wei Yi, the man we have not seen at all. All right, now he hasn't played Magnus yet, but he is on +5, which means he's made 5 wins and no losses, and 3 draws. +5. David Anton and Magnus Carlsen tied for second place. Anish Giri in fourth. Then it's PRAGG, Ding, and then, we still got 2 more days, so it doesn't really matter. But Wei Yi. Damn! Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will be making recaps of this and the Superbet Chess Classic Rapid and Blitz if you are lucky enough to be watching this at the same time as both of these tournaments are going on. If you just somehow stumbled across this in the future, hi, and also bye. I will see you in the next video. Get out of here.